So you've seen a lot of news about the Greek debt crisis, but actually it's really not so much about Greece. Really, it's about the European strategy for creating a European Union, a European currency. Now, let's take the parallel to the United States. In the beginning, the United States was 13 colonies with a very weak central government. And those 13 colonies didn't really trust the central government, and they operated very independently. They had their own banks, they had their own currencies, and there were multiple of currencies actually in the United States. In fact, it wasn't until the 1860s that the United States unified around one currency, which we know is US dollar, as the only and sole monopoly currency for the country. It took almost 100 years for the US government to actually centralize their government, to strengthen the central government enough that they could actually support one currency. Now, the Europeans, of course, went about this in a somewhat different strategy. They have these very independent states, the somewhat weak centralized government, and they basically created a euro, one currency, before they'd really created the instruments that would allow those countries to really work together and unify their banking regulation, their budgets, and all those other parts of the economy. So it's been very difficult for the European process. Now, they thought by creating one euro, that would drive political union. Unfortunately, what we saw is in the 2000s, they had some treaties where they tried to drive greater political union. They failed because the governments couldn't all agree, needed unanimous agreement among all the governments. So now you don't have a strong central government, you don't have a way to kind of manage all those different parts of the economy, yet you have one currency. So Greece is just the symptom of this lack of centralized control. Now, in the United States, where we have a central government, we actually pay a lot of taxes to the federal government. Every state pays a lot of taxes to the federal government. The state of New Jersey pays a lot more than we receive back in benefits from the federal government. State of Massachusetts, state of New York, every year pay more than they receive. And every year, other states basically receive more than they pay. So the state of Alabama, state of Mississippi, state of Louisiana, all receive much more in federal benefits than they actually pay in federal taxes. These kinds of transfers are actually what facilitates our union, what allows one country to stay together. If Europe wants to stay together, they're going to have to get past this idea that the Germans are the Germans and they're not going to subsidize the Greeks. That if the Germans or the Finns are productive and more productive than the Greeks, over time, if they want to maintain one union, they're just going to have to expect to have transfers of cash from one country to another. And that's the way you maintain political union. And of course, the deal is that the benefits of this political union, benefits of those trade zone, outweighs those transfers that you make. And that's why we have one union here in the United States that stays together. And if the Europeans can figure it out, they can have one union as well. If they can't, the whole enterprise is at risk, not just this Greek exit question.